Namaskar and welcome to the exciting show of Sattology debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which is science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. Sattology builds your identity and mythology destroys it. The word mythology was coined especially for Indian history, Hindu history, not just Indian, in Hindu history, because everything else was already part of their culture. Abrahamism, all three religions, Islamism, Christianism, Judaism, are all part of Abrahamism. Yeah. That's why we have the latest Abrahamic Accords to bring peace between the three religions. It's a accord which was signed by President Trump to bring peace. So very startling name is there, Abrahamic Accord. I don't know whether when there'll be a Dharmic Accord, because Dharmic Accord is going to be the biggest one. All the Southeast Asia, China, and India, Japan, and all many countries. It will be the biggest accord of the world. I wish that day comes with the Dharmic Accord. So I have a very, very special guest today, and we are going to talk about the Dharmic countries today. And believe me, the Buddhism is part of the Dharmic network, which is very
Very
popular in the
much.
US, and also variants of Buddhism. Many variants of Buddhism are there. Approximately around 1095 variants of Buddhism are there. 1095. And just in India, there are 300 types of Buddhism. Just in India, one country. And just imagine what China has. China has an official version, China has a non official version. China has around 800 to 900 types of different Buddhism. And the remainings are in other countries. It's just you can, so 200 types of Buddhism are in other countries. So some countries are purely Buddhist, like the Thailand, and to some extent Sri Lanka, but Sri Lanka has a mixed Hindu and Buddhist culture.
Mhm.
And Indonesia has completely kicked out Buddhism out, but they retain Hinduism there. So Hinduism plus Islamism is working together in Indonesia. So let us welcome Monidipa. Welcome, Namaskar, Monidipa ji.
Namaskar, thank you.
So when we talk about Southeast Asia, in my book, I wrote how the colonization, one of the book was Gold, Glory, and God. In that, I researched and wrote about the Asian history, that how the native cultures were wiped out. So, which is your favorite country from where you want to start? It's a large area.
I will be speaking in general about the entire area. I'm
Uh-huh.
not taking up any specific countries this time because if I take up one specific country, that will become one topic. So first, this session, I want to make it as an introduction how the culture went from India.
Uh-huh.
So I will stick to that. Maybe next time I'll take up the countries like Korea. Korea is a very interesting topic because a princess from Ayodhya went over there, married the prince, and the Koreans had done a research on it, and I did a TV documentary for them. So I have worked on it. So next time maybe I'll take up Korea and Japan. Japan is also highly influenced by the Hinduism. They had this Shinto religion before Buddhism came in, and Shinto is still very popular there. Shintoism is very, very much similar to Hinduism. So we can take up those topics later on because those will again go into very details like the gods, how similar they are. Shintoism is basically Hinduism. What before Buddhism, what the Japanese followed. Then again in the 19th century, the Japanese people kicked out Buddhism. Let's say in that way, and under they made the emperor the supreme person and brought back Shintoism. But what happened was that once the emperor became the main power over there, a lot of Western influence also came in, and which sort of distorted Shintoism and did not have a good effect on Japanese culture. So we'll go into that later on in some other session. So this one, I just would like to discuss the routes that they took, how they went over there, how it reached those areas, and very interesting stories are there. Jataka stories tell us very interesting stories how people had traveled, and there are various evidences in literature. Then we have those sculpture which tell us that ships went. Cholas were very prominent presence one. Then Prince from Bengal went to Sri Lanka and settled there. We'll all go into that. So first, let
So,
me tell you that this was slightly bit about the Indian trading part.
uh,
India was never a closed country. It was always open to trading, right? I'm talking about the Harappan era. If you look at the Harappan era, you will find that we are trading with the Mesopotamians in the third and second millennium BC. So we go that old. Right from the start of civilization, India is open to trading. We are having ports like the Lothal port, and where trading is going on. They would go to this foreign places and given the goods, and then the goods would get carried on to other places. So India was into trading, heavily into trading right from the start of civilization. That was the western part. This Mesopotamia and the Harappan part, we are talking about the western ports. The Lothal is in Gujarat, and those ports are working, we know, from the Harappan period. Now, if you look at the eastern part of India, the Southeast Asia, how it was connected to India was mainly through this western parts, eastern parts. There were three main ports. We will come to that later. First, let me tell you that when we start reading about the Southeast Asian parts, we will find that in our texts, this part was known as Suvarnabhumi or Suvarnadipa, meaning the land of gold. This entire region was known as the Suvarna.
Yeah, actually, what I'll tell you, Suvarnadvip in Ramayana, so 7 islands are mentioned.
Yes,
Yavadvip,
yes.
Suvarnadvip, and there are 3 other dweep. So there is a lot of places mentioned is Yavadvip, Suvarna, like gold from Yavadvip.
Yes.
Suvarnadvip,
That
is there in Valmiki Ramayana.
It is this place they have mentioned, this place only. And this
which is Indonesia islands.
Which is, yes, Malay Peninsula. That area was known as Suvarnadipa.
Malay. One of
Malay Peninsula.
Yeah.
This Malay Peninsula was a part of this. I'll come to that. First, let me tell you that this area was known as a Suvarnabhumi or Suvarnadipa, the land of gold.
Even today, the gold mining goes on. Even today.
Yes. And it was famous for the vast quantities of gold and precious minerals that was found there. So this was first which attracted the Indian traders and merchants. And they were at that time, the Indians were very adventurous.
You'll be shocked to know Sugriva Sena went there to search for Sita. And Sugriva knew exactly what is there.
Yes.
So it's before Treta Yuga also this is going on.
They are aware. If you read the Vedas, you will be surprised at how much they were aware of everything. The exact geographical descriptions are so exact.
Right in the mountain, like one of the mountains I found in Papua New Guinea. So right till that mountain, that you have to stay to the west of that mountain. This is what Sugriva tells to is Vanarsena. That means they exactly knew which mountain, which valley.
Which locations are so exact. Even in this Korean Princess, when we were researching for it with this TV group, they said that they told me that the exact location of that marriage ka jo ceremony mandap pe hua tha, mandap ka exact location is also given. They had traced it and they had found a broken structure over there. This is how exact they were. If you look at the Vedas, this Manasarovar area, there's a small stream between the two tals, Rakshastal and Manasarovar. There's a small stream which is known as Gangachu. That is also mentioned in the Vedas. How do these people in those times know that there is a small channel over there which connects these two? Now we know we can go over there. There are so many ways to go over there. But,
and I will just go just to corroborate what you're saying. In Valmiki Ramayana, there is a place which is mentioned that towards the Uttari Disha of Suvarnadvipa, there is a mountain where the Shiva is worshipped. Even till date, that place is known as Mahindra Parvat. Is in Vietnam. Still there.
So everything is very well marked by our ancient people. And
so Philippines. What about Philippines then?
I'll come to everything. Just so what was happening is that these they were lured. They were very interested in this gold and precious minerals, and obviously traders, they wanted to tap the money that would come from there. So they traveled to these faraway lands and islands, and there was another attraction over there, the spices. This area was famous for spices. Indonesian spices are famous. Most of the spices that came to India and later spread to the world was Indonesian spices. And so these spices were also main attraction. These are the same spices for which the Arabs in the 9th and 10th century and Europeans in the 15th century had trade wars basically for these spices. India was trading with them from BCE era on the spices. So now if we look at this area that you want to know the country is basically, if you look at this area can be divided into two parts. One part is known as the Great Indo-Chinese Peninsula, and the second part is the East Indies. So first we take up the Great Indo-Chinese Peninsula. It is made up of the hill ranges. There are narrow valleys, evergreen forest, alluvial plains, islands, and many rivers. The countries that make up this place is the Myanmar, which is the Burma, old Burma, Myanmar, Thailand, Malay Peninsula, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. So these are the areas which make up the Great Indo-Chinese Peninsula. Now the other part is the East Indies, which has various names. You call it by the Indian archipelago, you call it the Malay archipelago or the Asiatic archipelago. And it is made up of 6,000 islands. These islands include Sumatra, Bali, Java, Lombok, Borneo, Celebes, New Guinea, Philippines. So Philippines falls into this part, the East Indies part. And there are many more other smaller islands. The Indo-Chinese Peninsula area is separated from this archipelago by the South China Sea. You must be knowing the South China Sea is very famous. China is very eager to capture that part. This is the reason, because it is a connection between the Indo-China Peninsula area and the rest of the islands, the archipelago. It's a very important zone, basically. And this entire area, the ancient Indians referred to them as both the peninsula and the archipelago together was known as the Suvarnabhumi, while the Malay Peninsula was specifically known as the Suvarnadipa. It is the proverbial land of wealth that yielded gold. And what was happening was that because of this legend that there was gold mining was going on, it was not a legend also, it was true. People would travel to these places and they would settle down there. The Indians traveled, settled down there, and they married local women. So they became so this is how they colonized the whole area and spread Hinduism. They married local women, and when the many princes also went over there. From later on the Cholas, earlier from the Bengal part, that many princes would go over there and they established new kingdoms. All are Hindu kingdoms. So both the local common Indians going and marrying local women and the prince going and establishing new kingdoms led to widespread Indianization of these islands, and leading to the spread of Hinduism and Buddhism in these areas through not only through settling down and spreading the culture, also through art, literature, language, and social customs. They took over everything. I'm talking of an era when the Neolithic era has just ended and the civilization is starting. Hinduism is reaching over there. So these people are getting influenced by Hinduism. It is reflected in the art, literature, language, and social customs. So basically, they are Hindus. From Neolithic, when the religion is starting, they are becoming Hindus. And there is a Chinese eyewitness account of this Malay Peninsula part, which includes the Bali, Java, Sumatra, Philippines. He is telling us in his book, we find that he is telling us there are 500 merchant families, trading families, 200 Buddhists, and thousands of Brahmins, meaning Hindus, who have settled permanently in that part. And the locals are giving their daughters in marriage to these Indians. So it is a documented part that Hindus are staying there, trading families are there, Buddhists are staying there, and the locals are getting the daughters married to these Indians. It's a documented record by a Chinese person. So there are, when these people started moving, there are various ways they went. The search of wealth, and they went mainly to the sea part. The sea route was very popular, but there was also a land route. First, we'll take up the sea route. And the sea route was from the most famous port at that time was the Tamralipti. Tamralipti was, which is now known as Tamluk in Midnapur district in West Bengal. That was the main center from where people would rest of India, they would come over there, Tamnolipti, take a boat and start sailing to this Southeast Asian parts. And they would follow the coastline of Bengal, Burma, and enter the Bay of Bengal, cross the Bay of Bengal and then go, or they would straight go directly to the Malay Peninsula, East Indies, and into Indochina. There are two other very famous ports at this time. One was the Palura near Gopalpur in Orissa, and there were three more ports near the Machilipatnam near Madras. And these three ports were where these Indians would start the travel for the Southeast Asia. This is how Hindus would go and settle over there, and this is how they became Hindu colonies. And the entire area was Hindu colony before Buddhism went. There was another sea route which started from the Ganga mouth, and they took the eastern coast to Sri Lanka. From the Ganga mouth, they come down to the Bay of Bengal part, and then they would move to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was also a part of the Southeast Asia where the Hindus went and conquered. And sometimes they would also come by the western coast. They would start from the Gujarat, the Bharuch part, mouth of the river Narmada in Gujarat, and then they would come down the entire area, take the eastern coast, and then Tamnolipti, Burma, they would go. So this is how they would travel. Very interesting paths, how they would travel. And very seafaring. In ancient Indians were very adventurous and very seafaring people. So they would take the coastal road, reach Tamnolipti, Palura, Machilipatnam, and they would then board the bigger ships. They're coming by the river road or they are coming by the road. They would board the ship and then they would travel to the Far East. And they carried many social and religious customs which are still practiced over there. So, when you see these customs, you will realize that there's a connection with India. And when you start then digging in that how the Indian customs are so similar with this customs in this side, then you will understand where the connection is. Very ancient connection, almost prehistoric connection we have with the Southeast Asia. In Sri Lanka, as for example, in Sri Lanka, the Prince Sri Vijaya from Bengal, he established a kingdom there. And then there are narratives of how Ashoka's descendants shipwrecked at the Malay Peninsula while they were escaping from Magadha. And then they established a kingdom later on that part, 2nd century CE or something of that zone. So this is how they moved on. Sometimes the princes are escaping, they are defeated and they are escaping via the sea route. They are going to the Southeast Asia part. Traders are going in, normal people, the priests are going in. So this is how Hinduism got spread to this part. They're all traveling by the sea. There was also a land route, but the land route was very tough. I'll come to that later on. Land route was very tough. Very interesting parts are described in land route. If we now take up this Bengal Prince Sri Vijaya, who established the Tamralinga kingdom in the 10th to 13th century, and the Java Chronicles is a book which gives us all the stories of how this ancient Indians came and settled down in that part. And they narrate the stories of Hindus from Kalinga, established a kingdom in that island. And so Bengal Prince is also going, then Kalinga, Orissa people are also coming and settling in an island. Then the Java Chronicles also tell us how a Gujarati prince who had come to this island in the around 75 CE. Then again, if we move to Burma, Myanmar, there are stories that document the coming of Indians. The Burma, Myanmar people, the stories tell us that they came from the lower courts of the Krishna and Godavari rivers, that means Deccan part. They had come from the Deccan part and they are settled near the river Irrawaddy and the adjoining coastal areas. So from these various narrations in this book's text, we come to know that Indians from various parts of the country, not only from Bengal or Orissa, but from various parts of the country would travel to these harbor ports and then they embarked on the voyage to the Far East. So I hope I'm clear until now.
Yes, you are very clear, very clear. I mean, it is a very common knowledge also because the trading routes, the whole thing that the Europeans discovered the trading routes is not correct. Because it's a land connected country. I mean, even Europe was connected by land. One thing I'll tell you about the hair. And the Indian hair and the European hair are thin and silky. And many of the DNA and researchers they usually pick up the hair samples a lot. And even that's, many, and the South American hair is thicker. I mean, I'm not saying general, I'm just saying that the samples which people pick up. And the African hair is also very thick. So the similarity between Indian hair and European hair, which actually proves in many places, and not all the cases, because there is a lot of mixture of population now, but generally the Indian DNA strand is the major DNA strand in the entire Europe.
Okay. I didn't know this.
So
This is very interesting.
Because the whole Aryan invasion theory is debunked on multiple areas. Many scholars have done it, and now even the hair analysis is done it. That the majority, and also the thing that the blue eyes and the light eyes is very common in North India. Very common. India has the largest percentage of light eyes in the world, because it's not something. The whole thing is that Europeans have blue eyes, and the movies have made the Cinderella movies and all those things. I mean, my grandmother had blue eyes. I mean, in my family,
many Indians have it. Yes.
very common in Bundelkhand area, in the northeast area, even south in India. Very common. It's not something people don't even notice. It's that common. But the thing has been sold to, and South Americans have all black eyes generally. European eyes, light eyes have came from Europe. But where did they reach Europe? And it is also told in Parshuram's story also, that majority of the Kshatriyas, they ran towards the Caspian Sea and English Caspian, the Kashyap Mahasagar, and then further west towards Shakaldweep, which is again a European continent, is known as Shakadweep. And Arjun says beyond that is all snow. And it was true 6,000, 7,000 years back also.
Yes.
And on the
so
east
basically,
side,
India was the epicenter where migrations happened all over the world.
Yeah, because like it's a science. From the wherever the biggest stock is there, from there movement happens. It cannot be from a small area to a big. It can happen.
No.
But generally, the majority flow will be from
majority movement is
center to small population center.
Yes.
Generally. I mean, people run for better opportunities, because if there is a large population, then there will be more competition also.
Yes, true.
Competition for business.
That's what happened. And
so India has always been highly populated.
India has spread out. The population is always high and spreading out.
And India, if you look at any land in the Asia or any land in South America or North America, India has the biggest plain in the world, fertile plain in the world.
Yes.
Whether you pick up between Vindhyachal and Himalaya, the whole belt, including Pakistan. Pakistan is a new creation.
Ganga Jamuna Doab is a very fertile area. And Ganga Jamuna Doab, I was recently writing on for Financial Express. The rice cultivation goes back to almost 15,000 years. 15,000 before present.
Yeah.
Because it is so fertile.
Fertile. और आपको लगता है कि राइस पहले लोग नहीं खाते होंगे? Rice is
India is the first.
Valmiki Ramayana.
India is a place where rice originated.
Yeah.
We are having rice before civilization came in.
Treta Yuga. I mean, see, the whole thing of civilization is a European dawn of intellect. But for us, it's very normal. I mean, when Europeans were 17th century were in diapers, we were inventing number 0 and we're calculating the stars in the sky. So the Europeanization of the history has completely destroyed all the histories of the world, not just Indian.
It has
all the
very much. All the old ancient culture has been properly destroyed.
I mean, that is the whole point of there was remove the civilized. I mean, they are still not civilized. Even today, women are fighting for rights in America.
Absolutely.
I mean, the men are deciding what they should do with their bodies. I'm totally for the freedom of women. Like I say, whatever they have to do, it's because I have a different body. They have a different body.
Correct.
Whatever is their need, just like men have freedom, they should have the freedom also.
Correct. Absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, continue. Please continue.
Yeah.
I like this very interesting topic. You chose a great topic.
So next, this is what I discussed was the sea route. The sea route was the preferred mode of travel, but there was also a land route which was used by some to move towards the Southeast Asian part. And it went through Eastern Bengal, Bengal, then they go to what is Eastern Bengal as the Bengal part, Eastern Bengal part and Bangladesh now. Manipur and Assam. From there, they're moving out now. Eastern Bengal, Manipur and Assam. And this is all recorded in old Chinese texts. If we read this old Chinese text, we will find that in the 2nd century BCE, there is already a very established and flourishing trade between China and India through this land route. This land route was used for trading between China and India, and it did not stop at China. It moved, the land route moved across the upper parts of Burma, Myanmar, and Yunnan. From various Chinese records, Chinese people have given their own names. So people who knows how to decipher this, read these names, they know the correct Indian names. They can relate to the two names. China gives their own name versions. It is seen that Indians have settled down and established a lot of influence over the locals, not only in Burma, Myanmar, but also in Yunnan, which instantly was known as Gandhara. That place was also known as Gandhara at that time. It was the Indianized name. This Gandhara was the Indianized name given by the Burmese people in the ancient times, and it remained as late as 13th century. So we come across another Gandhara in the Burma area, which was known as Gandhara until the 13th century. Which this Yunnan area is very interesting because it had the kingdom of, there's a dynasty named as Nanchao or Tali, which as per the folklore or say the local narratives which the text record, was established by Ashoka's son, one of his sons. He had established that kingdom. And there are many such kingdoms, all Hindu kingdoms, which spread across the entire area established by Indians, such as the kingdom of Tasin. These are, I'm giving all Chinese names. The Indian names would be found in the Indian scriptures. They match the location and they find the names because China gives different name, India has a different name of the same place. So they match the locations and find out what the names were. And there were other Indian kingdoms, mostly Hindus in Pagan, Prom, Laos, Arakan, Malay Peninsula, Lower Burma part, Lower Myanmar, Siam, Annam, Cambodia, Cochin, China, Bali, Java. So entire area, as you can see the names, entire area is under Indian people who have come from Indian origin, basically Hindus and Borneo. Many of these places, very interestingly, they still have their Indian names with only very small changes. So if you look at the names, you'll immediately find out these are all Indian names. So you know the connection. There is some connection with the Indian part. And the local culture and continuing social religious practices also show that they had past connections with India. In Burma, Myanmar, since this is the closest to India, if you see the local tradition, it is believed that even before Buddha was born, we are talking about pre-Buddha period now, there was a Sakya chief from Kapilavastu who came and established his kingdom in the central part of Myanmar. So before Buddha is born, we have somebody from his clan, which is a Hindu. Obviously, before Buddha was born, meaning it's a Hindu clan. The Sakya chief comes from Kapilavastu, establishes his kingdom in the central part of Burma, and it lasted for 31 generations. So it was a very long rule. Now, when the Sakya chief family reign was slowly coming to an end, again came a group of Kshatriyas from the Ganga Jamuna Dwap, Ganga Gangetic plain basically. And the chief, this Kshatriya chief who came in, he married the widow of the Sakya tribe last king. The Sakya tribe was ruling from pre-Buddha period. Their kingdom was coming to an end. The last king had died. This Kshatriya who came from the Gangetic plain marries the widow and establishes his own kingdom in the same area. So one Indian dynasty ends, the second Indian dynasty takes over. So the Indians retain their clout over the entire area. Again in this area, the Arakan now is the Rakhine Myanmar area. The local traditions, the local narratives, various texts say that a prince in the royal family of Banaras, now different area, same country, Burma. There is a prince in the royal family of Banaras, Kashi, who came and established his kingdom at Ramavati. This Ramavati is now known as Rami or Rambai. See, the name Ram is still there. So only slightly modified. If you dig a little bit, you know the name has Indian connection. He had named this kingdom as Ramavati. The same place is now known as Rami or Rambai. So one part of Burma is ruled by a Sakya chief from Kapilavastu. Later on, a group of Kshatriyas go and take over from the Gangetic plain. Other part of Burma is ruled by a prince from Kashi. So totally Indian Hindu rule. Hindu people are staying over there. Then if we move to Cambodia, the Cambodia historical records tell us that the king Aditya Vangsha, he was from Indraprastha, ruler of Indraprastha. Indraprastha is the UP, Delhi belt, what is now the Delhi UP belt. From a king from there, his name was Aditya Vangsha. He banished one of his sons, who then traveled to the country and he established his own kingdom. So he defeats the previous ruler over there and he establishes his own kingdom in Cambodia. Then he later married a beautiful Naga princess, and the princess's father gifted him a capital city, and that kingdom was then known as Cambodia. That name is still, must be familiar with the name. The name is still there, Cambodia. So Cambodia is under Hindu rule. Burma is under Hindu rule. So these are all recorded historical documents. Then we have many Indian texts. This is from the foreign literary evidences that I was talking about: Chinese evidence, Cambodian evidence, Burmese evidence. Now, if you look at the Indian texts and folklores, we will find there are many stories that document this travels. And these travels are all associated with the travel to Suvarnabhumi. And these are all the before Common Era. So we have many Jataka tales that talk of such sea travels, where we find the story of a queen of Videha, Mithila. Actually, that is the place of Mithila, where a queen of Mithila had fled to Champa, which is now known as Bhagalpur. She had fled over there after her husband died. Husband was defeated and killed in a battle. She took as much treasure as she could and she fled to Bhagalpur, Champa. That was known as Champa then. And she raised a son there. The son then took half of her treasure and traveled to Suvarnabhumi. And over there, despite some mishaps like a shipwreck and all, he still managed to earn a lot of wealth, and he came back and he won back his father's kingdom, Mithila. This is the story in Jataka, where you see a prince traveling to Suvarnabhumi, becoming rich over there, coming back with the wealth and taking over the his father's kingdom again from the wealth that he got in Suvarnabhumi. Then there is another story. We find that a group of carpenters, this is all recorded in Jataka tales, group of carpenters from Banaras builds a ship using wood, and they set sail towards the far east, Suvarnabhumi, to find a new place to live in. And in the process, they discover an island in the middle of the sea that was filled with various fruits. And seeing that it's a wonderful place for agriculture and orchards, they decided to settle down there with their families. So these are all recorded documents of travels crossing the seas. So this is the Indian part of the documentation. Then we have another text, which is known as Brihat Katha, which is again full of such stories from ancient India. And the most famous story is that of adventures of Sanu Dosa. Sanu Dosa is a person who joins a group. He joins a group formed by an adventurer called Acheda, and they travel to Suvarnabhumi. And this Brihat Katha, this story in Brihat Katha, Sanu Dosa's story in Brihat Katha, gives us the land route, how they moved from India to the Suvarnabhumi. So there is a connection they go through Burma and all. And there are various paths. Very interestingly, they have differentiated between the various paths that these travelers were taking while they're moving to the East Indies. There is the mention of Vetrapatha. Vetrapatha is when they are climbing up the mountains using vetras. Vetras are creepers. They are using those creeper plants to climb up the mountains. So this is one path they took, which is Vetrapatha. And then they took up the Vangsapatha, which is they are crossing very swift flowing rivers, holding on to bamboos. This is known as Vangsapatha. So we are coming across two paths. One is Vetrapatha, one is Vangsapatha. And then they are crossing two sharp cliffs. They are crossing the narrow path between those two sharp cliffs by riding mountain goats, which is known as Ajapatha or goat's path. So these are all various routes which are marked. The land route that took them from India to East Indies, the Southeast Asian part. So third route is the Ajapatha, or which is the goat's path. Then we coming on to another path which is known as Jannupatha, or where they had to crawl. The road is so tough that they are crawling on knees. This is Jannupatha. Then we had the Shankupatha, and where they're using iron hooks attached to a rope made of skin, which is fixed on the cliffside, and the traveler climbs up the mountain using the rope. It is a process of rock climbing, which is still followed by mountaineers. This is being used in the before Common Era to move on to the Southeast Asian path, and what's known as Shankupata, using iron hooks. And then we have Chhatrapata, another route which is known as Chhatrapata, where the travelers use a parasol-like object, which is made up of animal skin or leather, to descend to the ground slowly. It is like a parachute, they're using it. And they're jumping down using it like a parachute and landing down. So this is the Chhatrapata. These are the various ways of traveling. People had to travel when they moved from India to East Indies. These are the various routes. And the routes were all filled with very difficult routes. The land path was not so popular by the traders because the route was very difficult. As you can see, the Ajapatha, the Chhatrapata, and the Shankupata. So these are very difficult routes, and they faced a lot of dangers. So basically the adventurers would take this path, and people who wanted to go to the Suvarnabhumi for trading, they would take the sea route because the land route was very difficult. The sea route also had its own share of dangers, and the dangers are evident when we read the sea travel records by the famous Chinese traveler Fa Hien, 5th century CE. He took the sea route. When he was returning to China from India moving from India to China, he took the sea route in 5th century CE. He tells us that the sea route was also dangerous, but the land route was even more dangerous. So people, except for those travelers who are going up to China and the Burma part, most of them would take the sea route. When Fa Hien took the sea route, he was traveling with 200 other merchants, and the sea developed a leak in the middle of the sea. So what happened was that he tells us a very interesting story that to save themselves, the merchants threw away a part of their own merchandises into the sea so that the weight is lessened and the vessel is saved from sinking. And he also gives a detailed description of how terrified they were. And during the storm, the sea developed, first it develops a leak, then they faced stormy days and nights. Sky could not be seen, directions could not be seen because they used to locate directions to the sun, moon, and stars, and they could not be seen. So they were floating around aimlessly and being tossed about aimlessly like a rudderless ship. And they were very scared. So he has documented everything about the sea route. And there were rocks below the waters, and they were scared of that. So Fa Hien has documented the entire sea route in his travel records. And it took Fa Hien and the merchants more than 90 days to finally reach Javadipa, which is Java. Very interesting stories of the sea route. Also, sea route has its own fair share of difficulties, but people still prefer the sea route than the land route because the land route, as I told you, was even more difficult. And these travel narratives and other literary texts, both from the Indian side and the Southeast Asian part, they tell us of stories of Indians who had established kingdom in far off eastern lands and who carried over the Indian various cultures, social customs. They did not forget their roots. They carried those things over there. And it also very interesting tells us one characteristic of the Indians then, that not only the merchants undertook these dangerous travels for profit, agreed, wealth and prosperity, yes, but there was also a very strong spirit of adventure and a very strong desire to explore new lands. And this is very clear if you read the narratives, especially the land route, the Sanudosa story. If you read, you'll understand it was not only for money. They are not only going for wealth or prosperity. There's a very strong desire to explore new places. There's a strong spirit of adventure. Indians were very different, so to say, in those days. There was a very strong spirit to go about. We will try our luck. Let's see. Not only for money. It is also for our own spirit of adventure is there. We will go. And so this ancient people would go to explore new lands to these places. And these stories also help us to give a very good idea of the existence of Hindu kingdoms in those areas and the socio-religious lives of those people. And from various Chinese records and Greek records, we say that some of these kingdoms were very early kingdoms. They are BC era people. As we have already seen, the Sakya kingdom was before Buddha, which means before 6th century CE. So BC. So these people are traveling to these places in the BC era. Harappan is even older. So Indians were traveling to various places from the civilization, start of civilization. And the people who were living before they became Hindus were belong to the Melanesian group, which is now some are found in the Australia, New Guinea part. Then there was an Indonesian group, which is now represented by Chams. Champa Kingdom is what this Chams later built. And they became totally Indianized. These Chams were totally Indianized. And they were the Monkaimas. These are all Aboriginal local people who got Indianized as the Indians came and settled right after Neolithic period. The Thais were there. They were all Hindus to begin with. And the Hindus settled over there, married, spread their religion. So there was a total colonization of Indians by this period. They went for trade. They went and settled down. And gradually the culture spread out. They married the local people. So this is how they slowly started spreading in the Hindu religion, art, culture, social ideas. And the fusion between the Indian settlers and this Hinduized local people was so complete that it was after some time, there was no way you could distinguish between the two. They became same. The local people became total Hindus. They assumed Hindu names. They adopted Sanskrit and Pali language. The Hindu religion, manners and customs became theirs. And Hindus also took in some local habits and social uses and merged themselves very well within the local community. So that is how Indian colonial kingdoms grew up, and they slowly became very strong in those parts. And there was an eyewitness who records, very interestingly, he records this. He was a Chinese. His name was Tuen Suen. He says that he talks about a colony market. Its market was a meeting ground between the East and West. East means the Southeast Asian part, and West is referred to the Indians. For them, India was West. Frequented every day by more than 10,000 men, including merchants from India, Parthia, and more distant kingdoms who came in large numbers to carry on trade and commerce. It contains 500 merchant families, 200 Buddhists, and more than 1,000 Brahmins from India. Day and night, these people read sacred scriptures and make offerings of white vases, perfumes, and flowers to the gods. So this migration of Indians are recorded in various ways. We have temples, Indian temples recording the travels through boats. So this is very well documented. And I think what is more important right now, since we know this, R.C. Majumdar has written books on this. What is very important is that we now need to give them in a textbook. Students need to know them. We know them because we are reading books and out of interest, and we are reading them. But students also need to know them. So all these stories, very interesting stories, should now go into our textbooks also, so that the children know that how deep the connection was, how from Neolithic era the state went into Hinduism. Then Buddhism came in in around 6th, 7th century. Buddhism came in. Then they shifted to, there was a large-scale conversion to Buddhism because the royal patronage shifted. So these are things which they need to know. And not only trade connections, they went and established kingdoms because they loved adventure and they enjoyed exploring places. Then they settled down over there because they liked those places, settled down there, Indianized the whole thing. So these things are not taught in a book. So these things need to come up now. And we need to now tell our children that, see, we have once gave the social, the religious customs to this part, and we are very strongly, the Southeast Asian countries are now trying to working on this, on the connection between India and the countries. India also needs to take up that initiative and needs to connect with its roots. These people have had once spread Srivijaya had gone to Sri Lanka. They are all Indians. They all have Indian DNAs. Entire Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka, this entire part has also Indian DNA. So India needs to now focus on this and work more on it and spread the word to the students, teach them and tell them that our genetics has spread out to the eastern part. Western part is also there. We know eastern part. And they're very eager because the Koreans, I've seen the Koreans, the Japanese, they're very eager to establish connections with India, the ancient connection. And India should also collaborate. They have collaborated with the Ayodhyan princess case with Korea. Very interesting topic, how she went. Suri Ratna, the princess was Suri Ratna. She was just 16 years old and she traveled all alone with her maids in a ship to Korea and gets married over there. And she gets a new name over there. And this Korean people had done a lot of research on it. And they had made a video of the animation of how she travels, meets the prince, gets married on the seashore. They have traced the mandapa and everything. So these are connections which we need to explore more. Indian side, they are doing the job. They are very eager to do it. But Indian government needs to promote these connections more. It's a very beautiful connection, ancient connection we have, and we need to explore these more. So,
the Indian look east policy is not grounded because they want to look east, but they don't want to connect. See, when you connect people at the culture level, that connection is deep. But
very deep connection.
India is always denying it. The Indian policymakers.
It's a problem. You know what is that? Is before this 2014, the regime change happened. At that time, they were too busy. They were too busy making Indians ashamed of their own roots. That is the problem with Hindus.
India has always tried to establish connection with Middle East, which has no connection with India.
No connection at all over there. No connection. And we should go to look southeast where the connection, actual connection is.
Actual connection is there, and also, if you have to look west, you have to tell them that all the Arabs, in Abhira Desh, it was called Abhira Desh, across from Sindhu Nadi, Sindhu Sagar was Abhira Desh. Now, India should tell them that, hey, you also came from us. Your DNA is same like us.
Yes, of course.
But the thing is, your mindset is different. Your mindset is anti-dharma.
Everything, I don't know why this eagerness to connect with the Middle East, everything is, this is Mughal, this is Mughal, this is Mughal. Why? No, we don't have any connections with them. Our connections go far more ancient.
They have destroyed our lands. Arabs have destroyed Persia. Arabs have destroyed Zoroastrians. Zoroastrians were Hindus. Arabs have destroyed Pakistan, which is... and Arabs have destroyed, even today, they are influencing people living in India. Like a person born in India, having the mindset of Saudi Arabia. And
person born in India is dressing up like the Arabs. Why? We have our own culture. Why are you forgetting that culture? Just because you adopted a foreign religion doesn't mean you give up your culture also.
No, actually...
Burqa is not a part of a system, no? It's not Indian.
I mean, most of the Europeans were surprised when they came to Kerala. So Kerala, there is a community where women have no... there is no rules for women to dress the way they dress. Whether they dress or not, but the men were so controlled that they never exploited women. And there is a culture of India. The training
that is the culture of India. See, when during wars, there was no concept of picking up women and children in the Hindu wars. The wars used to happen at a particular time, and there was the unseen, the untold rule: you will not touch women. You will not touch the priests, the Brahmins. You will not touch women. You will not touch children. And they all followed this. You will never find an example of them picking up women. The Islam, what they do is pick up women for sex slaves. Hindus, they did not have this entire concept of doing this.
No, the ideology in Arab Desh is totally anti-women, anti-children.
Absolutely.
And they view women as objects.
Yes, as commodities, basically.
Yeah, and in India, that culture is not there. And also Southeast Asia, the culture is not there. I mean, don't find that kind of issue.
Southeast Asia is Indian culture.
Indian culture. And even China doesn't have that culture.
No, they don't. Because even again, Korea, China got the Chinese religion. If you also notice, Buddhism is from India. There is no doubt about that. So everywhere you see Buddhism, Indian culture is there. So China is also, yes.
many years back, I went to
Uh,
Shanghai,
mhm,
and I am from Bombay, so I could not help see the similarity between Bombay and Shanghai. Everywhere there
mhm,
were lotus ponds, lotus flower,
mhm,
Buddha
mhm.
everywhere. And I was shocked that I'm in India or I'm in Shanghai. Now,
Uh,
if you ignore the modernities of Shanghai and everything else, but the culture, inherent culture on the ground was like that. And you have the same kind of Jeb Katra in Shanghai like you have in Bombay. You have the
mhm.
same kind of petty thieves in Shanghai like you have in Bombay. Despite communist rule, despite everything, you have to save
Uh,
your pocket, and
the
don't have to listen
mindset
to
is same.
anyone. The mindset is the same. Like they'll talk you, and they'll convince you for buying something which is not existing also. It's very common. Everything like, so they, since I had an American passport, so I said, they were confused whether I'm from India or the. So safe thing, even if you travel anywhere, I don't people don't see your passport, so just say that you're from India. You get better deals
Mhm,
because they
mhm,
know these guys are poor guys, and we have to cut a good deal for them to buy. The moment you say you have an American passport, then the prices go up 20 times up. So to my skin color and everything, and I was able to get some
uh,
good deals over there. And my fellow colleagues who were traveling with me, and I said, "What did you buy this price for?" Their prices were 20 times more than me, and so I made use go of my good skin, and over there, and I was able to negotiate with them like an Indian would do. They said, "No, no, this is not a good price." They'll keep reducing the price, and in Shanghai there was a rule: if you're from India, they think that you are a very hard negotiator, so they don't want to
okay.
work with you. They want to work only with the light European skin,
Mhm,
and they will. The moment that European skin, the guy with the white skin will come. By the way, I'm not racist on judging anyone on the skin color.
mhm,
I can talk about my skin. That is not racism. So the moment my colleagues will go, and then later on they found out the secret that everywhere I should negotiate for all of them. So I said, if you're me to negotiate, then you have to stay far. You like whatever you like and go back, and I'll go in front, and then I'll start negotiating over there. So the moment they were so smart, they said, bring the other guys, and I don't know Chinese. They said, bring your other friends here, bring your other friends. You don't come here. They understood it, just like any Indian will do. No, it is fun. It is
mhm,
actually, see, the thing is, just like they have a Abrahamic record, I want a dharmic record to be there, because dharma is a
mhm.
common binding factor across
It
Southeast
is very
Asia. Yeah.
important now. We this non-Abrahamics come together, form this dharma record, and India is the core. So India should make the initiative and connect with them now. It's high
So,
time.
if you make a dharmic record, I'll give you some statistics. Rough,
Mhm,
rough. So India is
mhm,
the number one population in the world now. Is the number one
mhm,
now. It's no more number
mhm.
two,
No.
officially.
Mhm,
So, so India, China, Southeast Asia, it makes it 3.4 billion people.
mhm.
50% of the earth is still dharmic. I mean, if you see in this
That
way,
is true. If you
if
see
you,
it that way, yes.
if you see that way, the only place which is adharmic is remaining is the Middle East and
Mhm.
Europe also. Thankfully, the Indians are there. That there are temples in every city in Europe now.
Yes, yes, yes.
And South America, the Sanatan Dharma is the fastest growing culture now. So, and America, in any case, yoga has captured America. And
Hmm.
yoga is connected to Vedas, connected to Hindus. It's not.
Yoga is the basic of Vedas. Matlab, it is just not a physical exercise. If you
Yeah.
understand yoga, it is moksha. It is controlling your breath, and you are controlling yourself to unite with the supreme being. It's a
No, Krish-
process to achieve moksha.
Krishna tells Arjun, Tasmad Yogi Bhavarjuna, become a yogi.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, I mean, but yoga is everywhere, everywhere.
Yoga is it's a very difficult, not very easy to understand, and people just say it's physical exercise. It is not physical exercise. It is completely a different thing.
so yoga. So if you read carefully, and I'm
Hmm.
writing in my new book also,
Uh-huh.
yoga and Sanatan Dharma and Adhyatma have no difference. All three are same, because Sanatan Dharma also depends on, if you practice on the basis of soul, which is yoga. Without yoga, there is nothing there. So it's synonymous word. So like, if
Hmm.
somebody tells me, that, oh, I'm doing Jnana Yoga. I said, no, no, yoga is one. There are
Yoga is one.
differentiations there. Like if you follow the Jnana Marg, then it's Jnana Yoga, but the ultimate goal is still the same. But, and yoga can be a very, like, many Americans go to Thailand to learn yoga. And I asked them, what the hell are you going to do in Thailand? Because the moment you go away from the center, the philosophy decreases. It's always decreases.
Absolutely true.
So, like, if you go from Rishikesh to Thailand, there is some decrease. And what about
yoga? India is the core point. You should come to India.
Like the Rishikesh has many yoga schools called the yoga.
It has. I've seen them. Yes, they have.
But there are even better yoga centers in India also. I love Rishikesh, by the way. There are Haridwar there. There is a lot of good yoga teachers. Yoga teachers, I mean to say parampara yoga teachers. Parampara.
Yes.
This is Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya. Go to South India, go to North India. And the most funniest thing is, Saudi Arabia has yoga now. Riyadh.
Yes. Recently they have started.
Over there. There's 75 schools of yoga. So if all the Muslims who are watching, you need to know, Saudi Arabia is turning towards Ramayana and Mahabharata also. But thank you so much.
That is... Tell me.
Yeah. So even that is happening there. And the another advantage which India will get is, like, if you look at the languages of Philippines, it's Tagalog. Tagalog script is Brahmi. The script is Sanskrit. And it has many words, like one of the famous greetings of Filipinos. I have very good Filipino friends here, Filipino Americans. Mabuhay. Mabuhay is very closely connected to Mahoday.
Acha. Yes. Sounds familiar also.
Mabuhay is a celebration call, like you. Like that in Filipino language. And they, it's very closely connected to Mahoday, Mahadev. Like very closely connected to that. It means actually a great person, which is Mahadev. So that has always been connected there. If you look at the traditional handicrafts of Philippines, and I'm not even going to Indonesia. Indonesia is very much Hindu. Very much Hindu.
Bali, that area is totally Hindu.
Totally Hindu. But if you look at Philippines, which was forcefully converted in 16th century by the Spaniards, they had told them, either you convert or die. That's what they told them.
The Spanish are very rabid. They are very rabid.
But they were defeated in India. Spanish were defeated in India. Dutch was defeated in India. French was defeated in India. English were defeated in India.
Even the Portuguese, except for that Goa part, Portuguese was also defeated. No, Portuguese is another very virulent
Portuguese were very violent. What they did to Brazil, like, you cannot...
It's horrible.
You cannot condone them.
They Spanish and the Portuguese both. Horrible things there.
I had a show on Brazil, and I went to Brazil many times. I've been there. No, their history is told to be Portuguese history. They wiped out everything clean.
Yes.
Spaniards did the same thing. Spaniards wiped out everything. Even today, even today, the South Americans who speak Spanish language are the slaves of the Spain. And gradually, thank God, Mexico for the first time is disconnecting itself from Spain now. But still they're speaking Spanish language, which and just like India has 3,600 languages, Mexico has also 3,600 languages around. But not a single thing is told. Not a single thing is spoken. In India, one thing Indian government has done a very good work is they have preserved those languages. They have protected them, preserved them. And India is the only country in the world where the tribals have more rights than anyone else. That is also a good thing. Including the next president of India is from a tribal region.
Yes, of course. We are very proud of it.
Very proud. I'm very proud. Yes. I want Americans to have a Native American as their president now.
Yes.
Because they've had a black person. And the whole theory in the West that only white Europeans can be president. No woman president ever in USA, which is supposed to be the most advanced country. Woman president. India had even prime minister.
Yes.
India had a very
president also. Yes.
Chief ministers, many chief ministers.
Many chief ministers.
Including Mamata Banerjee.
Yes. Put an example.
So anyway, but the viewers, like, this is the way to go. East is the way to go. Now Singapore is a very striking example. No, what the West Europeans have done is created colonies for themselves. That's why they hate China, because China returned Hong Kong. If Chinese had any brains, for, I can challenge all of them. I mean, Chinese have brains, but the Communist Party definitely doesn't have brains.
Yes.
They will see that they are playing into the hands of the European strategists by fighting with India. India is their mother country.
India, they should join hands with India, because this entire area is culturally connected, instead of joining hands with Western countries.
And Tibet should be always made an autonomous region, jointly administered.
They were always separate. I don't know why China took it. It was very recent invasion happened. But Tibet was always separate.
Which is a British agent in India. Nehru is a British agent. I'm American channel. We can call him a British agent. The Nehru was a British agent who was there for carrying out the wishes of the British Empire, and that's what he did. And so we have to bring it out in the public. But anyway, thank you so much. It's a very interesting discussion. I think viewers are loving it.
Yes.
But
thank you so much. Yes,
Dharmic accord is the way to go forward.
Yes, and Southeast Asia is the way to look forward now. Needs to connect with India.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you so much for inviting. Namaste.